First contact misconceptions. Zarifal studied the approaching blue-green planet through the observation deck of the diplomatic vessel. After 3 decades as the Galactic Confederation's top diplomat, he thought he'd seen everything the universe had to offer. Yet Earth represented something unique, the only known world where apex predators had developed advanced technology and space travel. "Ambassador, we're beginning descent protocols," Captain Never announced. "Earth authorities have cleared us for landing in their Singapore spaceport." Zeri nodded, his 4 eyes blinking in their characteristic diagonal pattern, a sign of nervousness among Quartarians. "Any update on security protocols?" "That's the strange part," Never replied. "They've assigned only 2 official security personnel. The rest are," she paused, checking her translator, "civilian coordinators." Zeri's chromatophores flickered with concern beneath his ceremonial robes. Every diplomatic briefing about Earth mentioned the same puzzling contradiction. Humans were simultaneously one of the most peaceful and most dangerous species in known space. How could both be true? The ship descended through wisps of cloud, revealing a sprawling metropolis of gleaming towers, floating gardens, and efficient transit systems. Zeri had expected military checkpoints, weapon emplacements, or at least visible security drones. Instead, he saw only ordinary humans going about their day, unarmored and seemingly unconcerned. When the ship landed, a small welcoming party approached. At its center stood a middle-aged human female with dark hair streaked with silver, wearing simple formal attire with no visible weapons or armor. "Ambassador Zarifal," she said with a slight bow. "I'm Director Lin Wei of Earth's Diplomatic Corps. Welcome to Singapore." Zeri extended his upper appendages in the traditional greeting. "The honor is mine, Director Lin. I confess, I expected a larger security detail for such a momentous meeting." Director Lin smiled, a gesture Zeri had been briefed to recognize as friendly rather than threatening, despite the display of teeth. "We prefer to keep things casual on Earth. Ambassador, rest assured, you're perfectly safe." As they walked toward the terminal, Zeri noticed something odd about how humans moved. Despite their casual demeanor, each one maintained exceptional spatial awareness. A maintenance worker carrying equipment sidestepped a rushing traveler without looking. A young human chasing a hovering toy performed a perfect roll to avoid collision with a cleaning bot. Even the elderly humans moved with a balanced precision that suggested latent capability. "Director," Zari asked carefully, "are these people trained in some way?" "Trained? Not specifically," Lin replied. "Just ordinary citizens." The diplomatic convoy traveled through the city toward their accommodations. Through the window, Zeri observed more puzzling behaviors. A human in business attire leaped over a puddle while never spilling their beverage. 2 adolescents practiced some form of recreational combat in a park, moving with speed that would impress Quartarian elite warriors. A construction worker caught a falling tool one-handed while engaged in conversation. "Your species moves differently," Zeri observed. Lin nodded. "We evolved as pursuit predators, Ambassador. Our ancestors chased prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. Those evolutionary adaptations never left us." Before Zeri could respond, their transport vehicle slowed suddenly. Up ahead, a public transit vehicle had malfunctioned, its anti-grav systems failing. The massive conveyance was tilting dangerously toward a crowded pedestrian area. "Emergency protocols," the driver announced calmly, as Lin immediately began communication on her device. What happened next defied Zeri's understanding of civilian behavior. Instead of fleeing, nearby humans immediately organized themselves. Office workers, food vendors, students, people of all descriptions moved with coordinated efficiency. Some evacuated the danger zone, while others approached the failing vehicle. A group of 8 humans, completely ordinary citizens wearing everyday attire, positioned themselves beneath the tilting edge of the transit vehicle. Working in unison, they physically stabilized it while others helped passengers evacuate. A female human who appeared to be a teacher directed pedestrians to safety with commanding authority. An elderly human rapidly rewired an access panel. Within 3 minutes, the situation was contained. By the time official emergency services arrived, civilians had already established safety perimeters, treated minor injuries, and stabilized the vehicle. "Remarkable," whispered Zeri. "These were soldiers, emergency workers." "No," Lin replied. "Just people who happened to be passing by. But their coordination, their physical capabilities, they acted without fear." Lin shrugged. "It's how we're built, Ambassador. Now you understand why the Galactic Confederation finds us so puzzling. We evolved as cooperative hunters. Working together under pressure is deeply ingrained." Later that evening, Zari requested access to Earth's evolutionary archives. The footage he viewed disturbed him deeply. Humans in historical settings performing feats of endurance that would exhaust most species. Persistence hunting, tracking prey for days without rest. Warriors continuing to fight despite injuries that would incapacitate any rational being. Even modern sporting events showcased humans deliberately pushing their bodies to extreme limits for entertainment. The most unsettling recording showed free solo climbers scaling vertical rock faces without any safety equipment, risking death with each movement. Not for survival or necessity, but for the experience itself. Zeri updated his diplomatic assessment. Humans do not require weapons to be dangerous. They are weapons, self-contained systems of capability that never power down. The diplomatic reception the next day gathered officials from 17 galactic species. Zeri observed the humans carefully, noting how they maintained perfect balance, even while holding drinks and engaging in conversation. Their eyes constantly scanned surroundings, not nervously, but with the casual awareness of creatures accustomed to both hunting and being hunted. Ambassador Creel of the Vazirian hierarchy approached, his scaled skin glistening beneath ceremonial armor. "Quite underwhelming, aren't they?" he whispered to Zeri. "I expected the infamous humans to be more imposing." "I would advise caution in that assessment," Zeri replied quietly. "Caution," Creel scoffed. "Their cultural attaché is an academic historian. Their lead representative is a diplomat with no military background. They display no strength." At that moment, the reception was interrupted by a thunderous crash as the entire west wall of transparent aluminum shattered. 3 rogue Tarjan mercenaries burst in, a banned species known for assassination contracts. They deployed sonic disruptors, temporarily immobilizing the security drones. Zeri expected panic, chaos, or at minimum, for humans to seek cover. Instead, what followed was perhaps the most disturbing demonstration of human capability he had ever witnessed. Director Lin kicked off her formal shoes and moved with blinding speed, closing half the distance to the nearest attacker before anyone registered what was happening. The elderly historian, a human male of at least 80 standard years, flipped a serving table as cover for other diplomats. A human server calculated trajectory perfectly, hurling a serving platter that struck an attacker's weapon arm with precision. Most shockingly, none of these humans showed fear. Their expressions displayed focus, determination, even calculated anger, but not fear. They moved with collective purpose, as though they had trained together for years, though Zeri knew they had not. When it ended, 3 elite Tarjan mercenaries lay subdued, restrained with improvised bindings fashioned from decorative cords and serving implements. The entire incident lasted less than 2 minutes. Ambassador Creel stood frozen, mandibles twitching in disbelief. They're not even soldiers." "No," Zeri replied solemnly. "There's something far more dangerous. They're humans." Later that night, Director Lin found Zeri on the observation deck, staring at the city lights. "You have questions," she said. "Many," Zeri admitted. "Your species lacks natural weapons, no claws, minimal strength compared to many species, no venom or significant natural armor. Yet you move like predators. Your civilians respond to threats like trained soldiers. It contradicts everything we understand about evolutionary development." Lin smiled. We survived on Earth by outthinking and outrunning threats, Ambassador. Our greatest advantage wasn't strength. It was endurance and cooperation. When early humans hunted, they didn't need to be stronger than their prey. They just needed to be more persistent. And this translates to modern humans. Even with your technology, our bodies remember what our minds forget, Lin said. We contain multitudes, Ambassador Zari. We're capable of tremendous compassion and stunning violence, often within the same individual. That paradox defines us. Zari's chromatophores rippled in understanding. The most dangerous peaceful species in the galaxy. We prefer to be known for the peaceful part, Lin replied. But it would be unwise to forget the dangerous part. Zari made a final entry in his diplomatic assessment that night. Earth requires no standing army because their entire population possesses inherent capabilities that other species must train for generations to achieve. Their civilians are their soldiers. Their predatory nature is always present, even in their most peaceful moments. Recommendation: accept Earth into the Confederation with full recognition of their unique status. They are not like us, and we would do well to remember it. The true nature of predators. The Galactic Summit Chamber aboard the orbital station, Harmony, bustled with representatives from 23 spacefaring civilizations. It marked the first time humans would formally address the Confederation Assembly as membership candidates, and tension hummed beneath the diplomatic pleasantries. Zarethal observed from his elevated position as summit moderator. 6 standard months had passed since his first visit to Earth, and he'd since become the Confederation's foremost expert on human behavior. He watched the Earth delegation with interest. 5 humans of varying ages, genders, and geographic origins. Unlike other species representatives, they wore minimal ceremonial adornment and carried no status symbols. Their chosen speaker wasn't a president or military commander, but Dr. Amara Okafor, an agricultural scientist specializing in sustainable farming techniques. The choice puzzled many delegates. Moderator Zarethal hissed, Sub-Hierarch Vex Lore of the Draxian Combine. Is this not irregular? The humans send a farmer to represent them at their confirmation hearing. Dr. Okafor is highly respected among humans, Zari replied evenly. She has revolutionized food production systems on 3 continents. But she is not a warrior or statesperson, Vex Lore insisted, mandibles clicking in agitation. It suggests they do not take these proceedings seriously. Zari's chromatophores rippled briefly. I advise against underestimating humans based on appearance or occupation, Sub-Hierarch. The proceedings began with traditional ceremonial exchanges. When Dr. Okafor rose to speak, she carried no weapons or no armor and displayed no obvious augmentations. Yet Zari noticed how every human delegate maintained the distinctive alertness he'd come to recognize, relaxed but ready, casual yet capable. Distinguished representatives, Dr. Okafor began, her voice warm and confident. Earth extends peaceful greetings to the Galactic Confederation. We come seeking mutual exchange and cooperation. Her speech focused on collaborative potential, scientific exchange, cultural understanding, and shared prosperity. Not once did she mention Earth's defensive capabilities or military assets, topics most species emphasized when seeking Confederation membership. When the time for questions arrived, Vex Lore rose immediately. Your presentation lacks critical information, the Draxian stated. The Confederation must understand how new members will contribute to collective security. You have not addressed Earth's defensive capabilities. Dr. Okafor smiled. Earth maintains minimal standing military forces, Sub-Hierarch. We prefer to invest resources in education, healthcare, and sustainable development. A murmur swept through the chamber. Several delegates exchanged confused glances. Earth's minimal military was well known but still perplexing to species that evolved with clear hierarchical protection structures. Clarify, demanded Ambassador Threll of the Mexori Federation. How does Earth defend its territories without significant military presence? Our best defense has always been our people, Ambassador, Dr. Okafor replied. Every human is a potential defender when necessary. Vexilor's scales flushed with skepticism. You expect us to believe civilians, untrained, undisciplined individuals, constitute meaningful defense against organized threats. Before Dr. Okafor could respond, emergency alarms blared throughout the station. The central communication system activated. Alert. Unauthorized vessels detected. Security breach in sectors 7 through 9. All delegates proceed to secure locations. Chaos erupted in the chamber as species reacted according to their evolutionary patterns. The insectoid Quillari delegates clustered defensively. Draxian representatives activated personal shields. The aquatic Melosan delegates retreated toward environmental safety pods. The human delegates did something entirely different. They stood calmly, scanning the environment and gathering information. Within seconds, they positioned themselves near exits and vulnerable delegates without a word exchanged between them. Moderator, Dr. Okafor called to Zuri. What's the nearest route to emergency control systems? Before Zuri could answer, the chamber doors burst open. 7 armed figures in unmarked exosuits stormed in, pirates or mercenaries targeting the high-value diplomatic gathering. Nobody moves. The lead attacker shouted through a vocoder. This station is now under the control of the Free Nexus. Cooperate and survive. The chamber froze in stunned silence. Security systems had been compromised, and the summit's protection detail was nowhere to be seen. The attackers moved with practiced efficiency, deploying neural disruptors at key points around the room. What happened next would forever change how the Confederation perceived humans. Dr. Okafor, the agricultural scientist, moved first. She calmly removed her outer diplomatic robe and stepped forward. There are 67 delegates in this chamber, representing 23 civilizations, she said evenly. What you're attempting cannot succeed. The lead attacker turned toward her. One more step, and I'll demonstrate how serious. He never finished. Dr. Okafor closed the distance with startling speed, redirecting his weapon arm before he could fire. The other human delegates moved simultaneously, with no apparent signal between them. The elderly human historian vaulted over a delegation table with impossible agility. A young human diplomatic aide swept the legs from beneath an attacker with perfect leverage. Most shocking was their coordination. 5 humans who normally worked in completely different fields moved together, as though they had trained for years. They protected vulnerable delegates while systematically neutralizing threats, using the environment and improvised weapons with devastating efficiency. In under 2 minutes, the attackers lay subdued. Not a single human had drawn a conventional weapon. When station security finally arrived, they found delegates staring in disbelief at the 5 humans who stood calmly among the restrained attackers. Dr. Okafor straightened her clothing and addressed the stunned chamber. As I was saying, every human is a potential defender when necessary. Hours later, after order had been restored, the Confederation Council convened an emergency session. Zuri was summoned to provide context for what they had witnessed. These humans, Sub-Hierarch Vexilor demanded, still visibly shaken. They are some form of concealed special forces. No, Zuri replied. Dr. Okafor is genuinely an agricultural scientist. The others are exactly as their credentials state: a historian, a cultural attaché, a linguistic specialist, and a junior diplomatic aide. Impossible, Ambassador Threll insisted. No species produces civilians with combat capabilities matching trained warriors. Humans do, Zuri said simply. Their evolutionary path created a unique combination of attributes. They don't think like us. They don't fight like us. And most importantly, they don't fear like us. He activated the chamber's holographic system, displaying anatomical comparisons and historical footage. Humans evolved as persistence predators on a death world of extreme environmental variations. Their ancestors didn't have to be the strongest or fastest. They simply had to outlast their prey and outsmart their predators. This created 3 distinct advantages. The display showed primitive humans tracking prey across savanna landscapes. First, Unmatched endurance. Humans can continue physical activity long after most species would collapse from exhaustion. Second, remarkable adaptability. They can survive in almost any environment and use almost anything as a tool or weapon. Third, and most significant, cooperative problem-solving under threat. Humans instinctively coordinate during crisis without need for hierarchy or command structure. The council chamber remained silent as Zeri continued. Most importantly, these traits exist in all humans to varying degrees, not just warriors or designated protectors. What you witnessed today wasn't exceptional by human standards. It was ordinary. Ambassador Krila of the Sorvasian Compact raised a tentacle. If what you say is true, why do humans present themselves as primarily peaceful? Why not emphasize these capabilities? Zeri's chromatophores displayed a pattern indicating deep consideration. Because they are primarily peaceful. That is perhaps the most remarkable thing about humans. They possess tremendous capacity for violence, yet actively choose cooperation. They build rather than destroy. They create rather than conquer. He paused, remembering his conversations with Director Lin. Most predator species that achieve sentience retain hierarchical protection structures. Designated warriors, genetic castes, specialized defenders. Humans eliminated that necessity through distributed capability. Every human carries the legacy of their predator ancestors, whether they're soldiers, scientists, or artists. It makes them the only species in known space that requires no warrior class because every individual is potentially dangerous when threatened. Sub-hierarch Vexilor's mandibles clicked thoughtfully, and this is why they maintain minimal military structure. Precisely, Zeri confirmed. They don't need massive standing armies because their entire population constitutes a defense network. Their military personnel aren't fundamentally different from civilians. They're simply humans who receive additional training to enhance natural capabilities. The council deliberated for hours. Eventually, they reached unanimous consensus. Earth would be admitted to the Confederation with a unique designation, Distributed Defense Civilization, acknowledging their distinctive security structure. When the decision was announced, Dr. Okafor accepted with characteristic human humility. "We come as friends and partners," she assured the assembly. "Earth seeks peaceful cooperation above all else." As the proceedings concluded, Zeri approached Dr. Okafor privately. "Your demonstration today was most effective," he said, "though I suspect unplanned." She smiled. "The best demonstrations often are, Ambassador Zeri. Humans don't like to boast about capabilities. We prefer to demonstrate when necessary." "One question remains," Zeri said. "Your species possesses remarkable physical and coordination abilities, yet you've directed these capacities primarily toward peace and creation, rather than dominance. Why?" Dr. Okafor considered this. "Because we remember our history, Ambassador. We've seen what happens when we embrace only our predator nature. The path to the stars required us to harness our capacity for violence and redirect it toward protection and creation." She gazed out the viewport at the blue-green planet below. "We're dangerous because we had to be. We're peaceful because we choose to be. Both truths define us." Zeri updated the official Confederation records that evening with a final assessment. Earth represents a new paradigm in galactic civilization, a species where every civilian carries the capability of a warrior, but the conscience of a creator. They are neither to be feared nor underestimated, but understood as the unique paradox they represent, the most dangerous peaceful species in the galaxy.